Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 3, entitled as Karma Yoga. Today we shall discuss text 1 through 9. Yoga comes from the word yujya, which means to link, to join. As soon as we use the word to link, it implies that there must be at least two objects involved. And which are these two objects? God and us. So the process of linking ourselves with God through our karma, through our work, is known as Karma Yoga. This chapter discusses how we do not have to give up what we are doing. We do not have to change our occupation. We simply have to use whatever talents, resources, and everything else that we have in the service of God to reconnect with Him, and then our work becomes worship. It is the process of taking us from the state of selfishness to selflessness. A tree produces many fruits, but selflessly offers them to others. All year round, the tree dutifully offers shade and shelter regardless of mistreatment by men and animals. Even when a tree is cut, it grows back with determination and strength, ready to serve the world again. The life and qualities of a tree give us profound insight into the real art of living in this world, while simultaneously remaining completely aloof, being in this world but not of this world. So chapter 3 defines that practice of Karma Yoga, the technique of achieving spiritual connection with God through our daily work. So the first 9 verses, let's just hear a brief summary of what is being discussed before we recite them one by one. So we'll hear at first Arjuna displays the typical confusion of an immature spiritualist. He thinks spirituality means retirement from active life and the adoption of asceticism. Go into the forest and leave everything behind. That's what he's thinking. Live in seclusion. Often the easiest response in times of difficulty is one of escapism. We want to just escape, run away. Worldly life entails awkward dealings with money, possessions, people, and career, to name but a few. So one might think, how can such a lifestyle be compatible with spiritual goals? So Krishna answers that true renunciation does not entail a mere abandonment of worldly duties. True renunciation or vairagya is to give up the mentality that I am the controller and enjoyer of all I possess, and I am the one who accomplishes things based on my own ability and intelligence. Thus, by offering the results of one's daily work, money, knowledge, influence to God, knowing God to be the ultimate enjoyer and controller, one achieves a real state of renunciation. So one does not have to give up work. One has to simply give up the mentality that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller. We simply have to understand that there is a hand that feeds us, that is the hand of God, and we have to simply acknowledge His contribution in our life and also use whatever He has given us to expand His glory, to expand His service, to strengthen our connection with Him as an act of gratitude. Text 1. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. 2. Vyamishyaneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vada nischitya yena shreyoham apnuyam. So Arjuna is asking a question based on what Krishna discussed in chapter number 2. He's asking, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work, he's back to square one. But there's a reason why he's saying all this. He says, my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. So Arjuna is thinking, on one side, Krishna is telling him to control his senses, control his desires, be free from dualities, happiness, distress, profit, loss. On the other hand, he is telling him to fight. Fight is for the kingdom. So on one side, Krishna is saying no material desires, complete control over senses, and cultivate intelligence. Don't be affected by the desires that come like waves in the ocean. Be free from the dualities of honor, dishonor, even if the Kauravas have dishonored you. So how can he at the same time tell me to fight? He's saying don't work, at the same time he's telling me to work also. So he's confused. So Krishna starts answering. So because he's thinking, should I give up work? Anyways, he didn't want to fight. Or he was even ready to change his occupation, become a sannyasi. He was thinking, and he actually saw an opportunity to escape here when he heard Krishna's instructions. Since he anyways didn't want to fight, his argument was, he didn't want to fight, and if as a Kshatriya Krishna told him he had to fight, then he was ready to change his occupation and become a renunciant, become a sannyasi, go live by begging in the forest. If being a Kshatriya, he was duty bound to fight. So he would not fight. Then Krishna said, you will get the reaction of not performing your duty. Then he said, okay, then I'll change my occupation. I will not remain a Kshatriya. So keeping all those things in mind now, Krishna gives a very, very powerful knowledge which is applicable to all of us. Text 3 onwards. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Loke Asmin Dividha Nishtha Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. He's talking about the goal of life, which is self-realization. There are two ways people try to do that. Some are inclined to understand by empirical philosophical speculation, and some by devotional service. Some by philosophically try to cultivate knowledge and understanding the difference between the body and the soul. So that's how they try to understand. And some try to directly engage in the service of the Lord, and this way they evolve. So Krishna is saying both ways you will have to do some work. Even if you're trying to analyze the difference between the temporary and the permanent, the body and the soul, and then you become determined to focus on the permanent, there is also some work involved. You're not sitting idle. And in devotional service, of course, there is active engagement in the service of the Lord, hearing, chanting, worshipping deity form, prayers, remembrance. So he says, Na karmanam anarambhan nesh karmyam purushvashnute nacha sannyasanaadeva siddhim samadhigacchati. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So he has read Arjuna's mind. Two things were there on Arjuna's mind. Either he doesn't fight, or he becomes a renunciant, a vairagi. Krishna says, by either way, you cannot attain the perfection of life, because human life is meant for attaining the ultimate perfection, freedom from birth and death, self-realization, God-realization, and there are prescribed duties involved to achieve that. So Krishna is saying, neither by changing your occupation, becoming somebody else, nor by not doing your duty, you can avoid the reaction that comes. Reaction will come. And If we don't do our duty, reaction for not performing our duty. Just like a policeman refuses to do his duty, he'll get a reaction from the police department. He'll be punished. And simply changing occupation will not help. Why? Krishna tells in the next verse, Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarma krit karyate hi avashah karma sarvah prakriti jair gunah. Reason, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. What this means is, all of us are born with a particular nature, and no matter where we go, our nature goes along with us. So if we have a habit of fighting, we will fight everywhere. It's not that we change our locality, community. That's our nature. So if we have a nature to do business, no matter where we go, we will only look for business. If my nature is artistic, I like to paint. So wherever I go, I would look for that beauty. So he is trying to tell Arjuna, first of all, not doing your duty will not save you from reaction. Thing is, everything in this world that we do is going to give us some reaction. So one argument could be, okay, don't do anything. Krishna says that will also not help. Why? He's going to tell us in the next few verses also. One is reaction for not performing your prescribed duty. As a human being, we have certain duties to perform. And secondly, we are born with the nature. If somebody wants to change his occupation, do something else, or move somewhere else, he's telling Arjuna, you are saying you will become a renunciant, you will become a sannyasi and go live by begging, but you are born with the Kshatriya nature. And Kshatriyas do not like to hear no. They can't hear no. And they will challenge, they will fight. So Krishna is trying to tell him, you said you will go and live by begging, but you have a Kshatriya nature, and the nature of begging is sometimes you will get, sometimes you won't get whatever you are asking for. So you will anyways act like a Kshatriya and start fighting, start challenging the individual. So there you will be torn apart. You are a sannyasi, but you are acting as a Kshatriya, so there will be another reaction. So you can't avoid reaction. You can't avoid entanglement. So he says, Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyacharah sa uchyate. So simply changing the dress or running away from the responsibility will not help. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. He will be called a pretender. So many times spirituality is seen as a path of escapism. If somebody takes to spirituality, somebody takes to renounced order of life, somebody gives a worldly life and starts living in a monastery just because the worldly life is very painful, difficult, then all the best, because you won't last. So the goal of renunciation is to engage our body, mind and words completely in the service of the Lord. That is sannyas, vairagya. It's not that, okay, I'm feeling very troubled in my life, so I take to renunciation, the path of renunciation. In fact, it is a misconception to think that anybody who's wearing a saffron living in a monastery is a renunciant, is a vairagi, is a sannyasi. So there are two types of vairagya described in these scriptures. One is called Falgu vairagya and one is called Yukta vairagya. Falgu vairagya means renunciation, artificial renunciation. That's called Falgu vairagya. And what is that? To consider the things of this world as illusion, as maya, as troublesome, and therefore give them up and then become a sannyasi. That's called Falgu vairagya. This is not true renunciation. And what is Yukta vairagya? So an intelligent person understands, if everything comes from God, how can the world be maya? It is our vision, that desire to enjoy everything for personal sense gratification, that makes it maya. If everything comes from God, how can it be not true? So therefore real renunciation is yukta vairagya. That means not giving up the things of this world, considering them to be maya, but understanding their connection with God and utilizing what we have, utilizing the things of this world in His service. That is called yukta vairagya or real renunciation. Giving up things is easy, but to use what we have to serve God, to connect with Him, is difficult, and that is real renunciation. That means any person who is living in a palatial house or a hut or under a tree or in a monastery can be the biggest sannyasi, renunciant, if he is living in this spirit. So even a person who is living in a family, worldly life, can be the biggest sannyasi, biggest renunciant, if he is living with this spirit, that he is trying to utilize what he has in the service of the Lord. That spirit, internal spirit, is most important than the external show. Yasto indriyani manasa niyamyarabhate arjuna karmendriyah karma yogam asaktah sa vashishyate. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. So living in a spirit that whatever results are coming are by God's grace, whether it's good or bad, so I accept both, and whatever I have, I try to use it in the service of the Lord, and I work at the same time, remember Him, then my actions actually become worship. Work becomes worship. So therefore Krishna tells Arjuna, perform your prescribed duty. Niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jyayo hiya karmanah sharira yatrapi chate na prasiddhyed akarmanah. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. He says you won't be able to maintain your body itself if you don't work at all. We ourselves have that experience. When we sleep at night 8 hours, body is inactive, and in the morning we have to literally do some stretching, and if we just get up with a jerk, then automatically there could be an injury to the body. So we have to get up slowly, move our body slowly. So body becomes so vulnerable to a disease or an injury if it is inactive for few hours also. So Krishna at no point recommends giving up work. But then he says, but then question could, but you said everything that we do in this world is going to produce reaction. Not working also is going to give me reaction. So what should I do? That's what Krishna answers in text number 9. He says, then how you should work to avoid reaction? Work you cannot avoid. So you have to work, but you have to avoid reaction. How can that be done? Yagyarthat karmano nitra loko ayam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So we have to work in such a way that with our work the Lord will be pleased. That work will not cause any reaction. When we work in this world, perform our worldly duties, we have to simultaneously also remember our actions, our words that might displease the Lord. So if we have His pleasure in mind, then we certainly do not indulge in those actions. We do not speak those words which will be displeasing to Him. That way, every work that we are doing becomes a karma or free from karma. It does not produce any reaction. It becomes worship, it becomes yajna, it becomes devotional service. So he's saying every work has to be done as a yajna. Yajna is meant for the pleasure of Yajneshwar. Yajneshwar is Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So everything has to be done for the pleasure of the Lord, keeping His pleasure in mind, and not like working according to your whims and fancies. And His pleasure, His desire, His will has been mentioned in the scriptures. So therefore we have to regularly hear from the scriptures to know what is right, what is to be done, what is not to be done. Otherwise, any work minus God will cause bondage, will produce some reaction. How can we do these in simple words? Suppose we want to earn money. Nobody is forbidden from earning money. Okay, earn as much as you want, but also use a portion of that to serve the Lord. You can give it for His mission. You can have a nice temple at home where the family comes together. You can build a nice small temple at home. You can regularly offer Him bhoga. So that way our money is used. You can organize satsangs, facilitate such activities. This way our money is used. We have a nice house. Nobody is forbidden from living in a palatial house. Alright. Have a small place for Him also. You like to eat? Alright. But whatever you eat, first offer it to Him. Then you enjoy it. So that is the process of Karma Yoga, and that will not give us any reaction. Basically, it means making God a family member. Basically, it means making God a partner in everything that you do, in your money, in your eating, in your living, in your enjoying, in your traveling, wherever. So God is the priority. That way, it is said that it is a life of connection, not rejection. Karma Yoga means you don't have to give up anything. You simply have to add God to everything that you do. Then everything that you do becomes karma free. And that is the process of Karma Yoga. If you live like that, it will not cause any bondage. This is the ultimate formula. Add Him and everything falls into place. Thank you so much.